Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the All Out and Wobble and Jaw Sports collab for our 2026 club season previews. I am joined by the man himself, Wobble and Jaw. Sam, how are we, mate?
Hello. Yeah, good man. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Sam. I'm doing well, mate. And as you can see to our right hand side, my good friend, we are covering none other than the Cronulla Sharks in this episode, Sam. So, look, without further ado, let's get straight into the Sharks 2025 review. So, if we're looking here, Sam, at the Sharks 2025 draw, it kicked off in Vegas. They went down in a close affair to the Penrith Panthers, 28 points to 22, my good friend. Is there anything, a takeaway that you sort of took away from that Sharks game? If you think about it, there was a lot of build up about this game in regards to, were Cronulla up with Penrith and, Penrith obviously coming off the premiership. And I don't know. I thought Cronulla really, there was the hype around the Aden Fanua-Blake signature for Cronulla and getting him on board. And I thought that they were valiant. They actually proved that, they were actually going to be a quality team in 2025. And obviously it proved that with the end result. But 28 points to 22. Any quick thoughts that you wanted to just say about the Sharks' Vegas appearance?
Yeah, I rewatched this game only a few weeks ago, and this was a high quality game. It also
Yeah.
saved the bacon of the entire day as well. This was the best game of Las Vegas last season, and the Sharkies could not have started worse, though.
No.
It was about 5 minutes where there was an error and they couldn't really make headway. And then an error came, I think, by a pass by Dylan Edwards. And then it was Jesse Ramian, if memory serves me correct me, that scored the first try. And they had a very good account of themselves. They had their opportunities to snatch it late. But no, you're absolutely correct. They had a really, really good match against the Penny Panthers on this day.
Yeah, I thought it was I agree with you wholeheartedly. It was definitely the better of the two games of Vegas's 2025 campaign. And considering, the one-sided affair that we saw in the Super League game was a pretty good affair. But then, the Raiders and Wars didn't really live up to expectation. It was a bit of a slogfest, a few errors there. But thankfully, the Sharks and the Panthers put on a really good display. But unfortunately for the Sharkies, they were the ones to lose in that affair, 28 points to 22. But against Penrith, I guess you'd be pretty happy. You sort of forget about what Penrith did after they returned from Vegas. Some would say that they were in Vegas still for half of the season, Penrith, but we will touch on that when we get to the Penrith review. Anyway, they bounced back again. I'm sorry, Sam, but unfortunately at your Cowboys' dispense in game 2 up in North Queensland, they were able to take down the Cows 36 points to 12 in that one. They then continued the good trend after the trip up north, and back at the Shark Stadium, they were able to get the victory 27 points to 12 over the Rabbitohs. They then unfortunately went down in round 4 to the Doggies, 6 points or 20 points to 6 in favor of the Dogs. So 2 from 2 in the first month for the Sharks throughout season 2025. So considering the opposition, Sam, that they versed, they sort of beat the teams that they should have. And the Doggies one was probably the most disappointing performance. They were strong against Penrith, fought till the end. But the Doggies one was a bit unfortunate there. They just couldn't get their attack going. Look, yes, they only conceded 20 points. Their defense through the first 4 weeks has been pretty good. But yeah, unfortunately went down to the Doggies in that one. A pretty tough draw for the Sharks, considering if you look back in years gone before the 2025 campaign, like you look back on it now, and then you also will touch on the 2026 draw. Last year's draw for the Sharks was much more difficult than what they've faced in recent times over, say, the past 3 or 4 years, Sam. So for them to get off to a pretty decent start against quality opposition, I think that they would be pretty happy. But at the same time, they would have liked to have converted some of these close losses into wins, because in round 5, the eventual minor premiers, they went down to Canberra and went down in a close one, 24 points to 20. They then bounced back over in Perth. We were at this game, Sam. It was a great game, a very exciting fixture. 24 points to 18. They were able to take down the Manly Sea Eagles over there in Perth in that doubleheader with the Cowboys and the Rabbitohs. Round 7, they then went to the Hunter, to Newcastle, and got the victory there, 34 points to 14. They then suffered a bit of a setback in round 8. They went down to the Tigers, which was probably, if you consider it from what we've just discussed, Sam, their first loss. This is no disrespect to the Tigers, but in regards to opposition that, you know, going into the season, you would have assumed that the Sharks would have accounted for. This was their first, you know, loss to one of those sort of teams. So again, a close one. The Sharks are one of the, like, who was it, Sam? Not the Cowboys, not Newcastle. It might have been Manly. That there was a lot, or it might have been a podcast before that, where they've just lost a lot of close games. And you think about it, maybe it was the Dolphins. I'm trying to think of the team that it was. They lost a lot of close games, and it sort of cost them in the end. It might have been the Dolphins.
Dragons, I was thinking.
Dragons. Oh, Dragons. Yes. Yeah, that's very true. Very true, Sam. So yeah, they weren't able to get the job done against the Tigers, but they were able to bounce back against Parramatta, Sam, in round 9. So that's 28 points to 18 in that one. Round 10 came along, and they went to a very strong fortress of 4 Pines Park, speaking of Manly, and they were able to get the job done there, 30 points to 14. They then had the Melbourne Storm come to Shark Park, and they were able to get the win there, and this was a huge win for their season, 31 points to 26 over the Melbourne Storm, a huge victory there at Shark Park. But then they must have left their legs in Shark Park, because they went to Gosford and got the business handed to them by the Sydney Roosters there in round 12, Sam. I think this was probably their worst performance in the first 12 weeks of the comp, 42 points to 16. The Sharks had been pretty stout defensively. Look, they'd conceded like 20 plus to like the Storm and Panthers, but against the other teams, they'd been pretty good defensively. This was the game where, unfortunately, their defense was shot 42 points to 16. So that was their first real bad loss, I thought, outside of maybe that Tigers one for the season, probably their first heavy one. Round 13 came.
Just before you go on, like, I don't want to stick the boot in, but this result was one of the more embarrassing results for the Cronulla Sharks in a few years, I would imagine, man, because this was a really affected Sydney Roosters outfit. Their backline is still nothing to sneeze at. I'm looking at the team list for that evening now, and both sides were full strength in just about in the backline. But then you look at the starting forward pack, and it's for the Roosters, Makatoa and Feketi taking on Oregon Korfusi and Fanua Blake, with Ayuelu and Brayley as your starting hookers as well. This was insane, because just the week before they did defeat the Melbourne Storm. And I've got to say, in the weeks leading up to the game against the Melbourne Storm, they were getting some wins, and there was a loss here or there, but they weren't really in any convincing sort of form. Like that Magic Round game against the Parramatta Eels, the Eels were right there to take the Cronulla Sharks down, but the Sharkies were just doing enough to get these 2 points here and there. Then they got what it felt like a breakthrough victory against that Melbourne Storm outfit in a really exciting game of footy, only to 1 week later come out and offer absolutely nothing, really, against the Sydney Roosters, who were mucking around with second string forward pack, really. And the Sharkies, I think they may have had one or two injuries, but the Roosters were affected to the tune of about 5 or 6 different men, mate. So this was, and it wasn't exactly a wake up call either, I would say, going into the next round, man. They had the bye to sit on that for a week, and then they offered up that 40 points to 10 loss to the Warriors at home. Yeah, it was just, it was a bizarre month or so from the Sharkies, mate.
Yeah, you're looking at it there, Sam, like the ladder through 12 rounds. The Sharks are there sitting in fifth spot, and the Roosters are all the way down in 11th. Yes, they're only like 2 points behind, but that's how close the competition was through the first half of the season. So, yeah, like I agree with you wholeheartedly. There was obviously that Roosters pack was depleted, and Cronulla were basically nearly full strength there. So they should have definitely done a lot better of a job that they did against the Roosters. But anyway, round 13 came along, and that was their bye week. So, tough win against the Storm, blowout loss to the Roosters, a week off. And unfortunately, like you alluded to before, Sam, they didn't bounce back from the bye very well at all. They continued with how they, the week before the bye round in round 12, they conceded 40 again and went down to the Wars at home, 40 points to 10 in, man, like you just said it was a pivotal part for the season for the Cronulla Sharks in this round 12 to 14 period there. That's two heavy losses, and they've been thanked or blessed with the bye there in round 13 to actually pick up 2 points throughout the 3 weeks there. So yeah, not the best, but I think this was when, Fitzgibbon, said, we've got to sort this out. Something's not going right here. We need to, get back into gear and refocus. And that definitely happened in, the game against their rivals, against the Dragons, 30 points to 18. Sam, that the Sharks were able to get the chocolates in that one. They then went up to Suncorp and were competitive against the eventual premiers, the Broncos, 34 points to 28. And that was a very close affair. I remember that game very well. And it could have gone either way there for Cronulla. Unfortunately, round 17 came along and it's very tough to get 2 wins against the Melbourne Storm. But the Sharks were unfortunately not able to do it. They went down 30 points to 6 against the Storm there in round 17. So the Storm, as they normally do, they get revenge. If you get the chocolates over them in the first encounter, they strike back with force in the second one. So look, let's just have a quick little recap. So we're through. Let's go through 18 rounds here with that bye round coming up for the Cronulla Sharks there, Sam. So we're looking at round 18, and the Sharks are sitting in 10th position. So they've actually fell outside of the top 8. And this was due to their for and against. There's heavy losses that we alluded to, Sam. We talked about it in the Cowboys podcast. We also spoke about it in the Newcastle podcast as well, where a couple of losses just completely blew their for and against out of proportion. Considering, if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, it was actually a lot better. There was just a couple of weeks where they just, didn't turn up defensively, and their points against were absolutely ramped up basically against those oppositions. So look, considering the draw, they had a tougher draw, the Cronulla Sharks, in this 2025 campaign. They're equal with the 8, but unfortunately, due to their for and against, we see them in 10th position in a game against a team that is in contention, Sam, for that top 8 spot, the Dolphins. This was a big win for the Cronulla Sharks. They were able to take down the Dolphins 24 points to 12. They then were able to get revenge after that basically huge loss to the Roosters earlier on in the season. They were able to get the victory there, 31 points to 18 in round 20. So a really good response there from Cronulla against the Eastern Suburbs there in round 20. We then saw them get the two-peat over the Bunnies. They won that one in a close one, 14 points to 12 against, a very injury-ravaged South Sydney. Cronulla were not at their best at that night down in Gosford. I don't know what it is with Cronulla and Gosford, but it didn't go too well for Cronulla at Gosford. Yes, they got the win in this one, but they suffered a heavy defeat to the Roosters earlier in the year, and then they were only able to beat the Sharks, the Rabbitohs, should I say, by 2 points. I remember that game. It was not a good one. I don't even want to make mention of it anymore. Let's move on. Round 22 came about, and they were able to beat the Cowboys 2 from 2 at home at Shark Park or Shark Stadium, 32 points to 12 in round 22. Round 23 comes along, Sam, and they unfortunately lose the derby. So the Dragons get revenge here, Sam, and they are 22 points to 14. The Red V in the first week of Indigenous round were able to get the chocolates in that one. But thankfully for Cronulla, they probably got a good whipping up the backside after that derby loss, and they responded in true style against the Gold Coast Titans, absolutely putting them to the sword in their home Indigenous round game in round 24, 54 points to 22. And that was definitely, yes, the Titans weren't the greatest team of all time in that last 2025 season. But you've got to actually go out there and execute. And that was the first time that the Sharks got over 50 points, 54 points to 22. And then they had their third and final bye round, Sam, in round 25. Let's just quickly have a look at the ladder here, Sam, and let's see where they're situated. So round 25, you can see, so they've moved up a few spots, and they're well on the 8 here, considering if you they made the 8 basically here. 32 points, I'm pretty sure was enough to make the 8. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check in a couple of rounds time, but I'm pretty sure 32 points was enough to make the 8 in season 2025. Round 26 came along, Sam. They put Newcastle to the sword in another dominant attacking performance, my friend, 40 points to 16. And the Sharks came in to the final series with a really strong campaign at the back end of their season. I know we've done so many of these teams, 11 before Cronulla tonight in episode 12, but the run here to the finals that Sam always speaks about in the 2026 reviews. You can see that the Cronulla Sharks have really finished the season strong here with a couple of really big wins, none bigger than that Bulldogs game. The Bulldogs fielded a pretty strong side in that game against the Sharks, even though they really couldn't make any placings or move really up the ladder. The Doggies, they still wanted to put out a strong outfit, considering they were struggling a bit for, consistency and, fluidity in their halves and combinations in their spine. So for the Sharks to go out there and basically put, their stamp of approval that they're ready for finals football, Sam, and they basically took down the Dogs with ease. And you can see round 27 comes about and the Sharks end up finishing the regular season in 5th position. We saw the Warriors slide down very, very, very badly at the back end of the season. There was a lot of injuries over there for New Zealand, and they struggled in that period that Sam, speaks about, that crunch time from round 20 to round 27. And with the Broncos defeating the Storm, they were able to clinch the top 4 spot. And I just want to go back to the point you and I had you mentioned it and I mentioned it as well, that those 2 losses in the middle of the season has really come back to bite Cronulla in the backside. You see they've it's about 63 points difference that they've missed the top four from. And we go back to right here, rounds 12 and rounds 14. They've conceded 82 points in 2 weeks of football. And I think it's very critical or very, very, very harsh of us, I guess, to look at this and say that. But I guess there's such little margins in such a tight competition that, every big loss could really cost you at the back end. And I thought if you look back at the whole Sharks 2025 campaign, yes, it was a very good campaign for Cronulla, but these 2 losses really hurt them and, basically lost them the chance of getting into that top 4 spot, Sam. What did you think of I guess we should touch on the finals, I guess, or do you want to just touch on the regular season and then look at the finals?
Let's look at the finals, man.
All right, let's look at the finals. You can stay unmuted, Sam. So week 1, it was the Sharkies versus the Roosters. Huge game. But unfortunately, the whole contest was overshadowed by, yet again, Sharks Stadium with their capacity. And that sort of ruined a bit of the hype around this contest because it was all like, should the game actually be at Shark Stadium due to the capacity? Like, why isn't it at, Allianz or another stadium there where they can actually get a few more people into the ground and so many people aren't missing out on seats? But in my honest opinion, yes, it's not the greatest, but I think the game should be played at Shark Park. I think that's their home ground. They deserve the right to play the first game there. Yes, like it's not the greatest for the Sharks or the NRL with their, revenue that they could bring in through ticket sales. If they played it elsewhere, you're obviously going to get a lot more people into the stadium, but huge win. The Roosters were coming in very hot as well, Sam. And to beat them, take them down 20 points to 10 was an exceptional effort. Now, we move to week 2. Let it be known that this week, the week before the Raiders went down to the Broncos in an absolute classic of a finals game, one of the great finals fixtures, in a very, very rough loss. And I remember I was sitting there after that, in that extra half or extra time period, and I was just thinking the team that loses this is in real strife for the week after. And they went down, the Raiders, to the Sharks. I think we'll look at that in the Raiders podcast, but they did themselves no favors with advocating for a Sunday final. And then unfortunately this game, the Raiders versus the Sharks, was on the Saturday. So it was the first of the 2 finals week 2 games. And they were just shot. But credit to Cronulla, they were outstanding, the Sharks. They went down to GIO Stadium and ambushed the minor premiers down there at home, and in what was an absolutely terrific performance from the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. And you think about it, like their whole season, and they performed well. They finished in 5th spot, but to bring down the high-flying Roosters in the way that they did, and then to go down to Canberra and do what they did against the Raiders, like that was, a serious 2 wins for the Sharks. But then it came to Melbourne for the 3rd fixture, and the Melbourne Storm were able to get the chocolates in a pretty close game, 22 points to 14. The Melbourne Storm were able to get the job done there, Sam, and unfortunately for the Sharks and their 2025 campaign. But considering from where they came, outside of the top 4, to beat the minor premiers and then, only go down by 8 points to the Storm, it was a very commendable season, I think, as a whole. And I don't think any Sharks fan should be upset with the seat. Like, you should be upset, obviously, because you haven't won the whole thing and you were in the finals action. But I think if you looked at like periods throughout the season, they were the draw. Like you look at it before the 2025 campaign, you look at that draw and it's like, oh, like we've got a pretty tough draw, considering what we've been dished up the last few seasons, to then go and finish, just out of for and against for the top four, to finish in fifth and then win those games, and then go down to Melbourne in Melbourne. Like that is a tough, tough game. Like no one really does well against Melbourne in Melbourne, maybe like Parramatta, maybe. But other than that, I think it's a very commendable season for the Cronulla Sharks, Sam, for their 2025 campaign. What did you think of the Sharks campaign overall in 2025?
Of course, it's a commendable season. Absolutely. The frustrating part about it is that you can see throughout that draw that they had a couple of really nice wins, and then the week after, whether it be win or loss, they would back it up with a really average performance. And the only time that I ever felt like they ignited was in that final round against the Bulldogs. And that was really the first time all season I thought, this is the Sharks that I have been waiting to see all friggin' year. And despite, a victory against the Melbourne Storm and a really good performance against Penrith in round number one, that Sharks performance against the Dogs was really good. And they just kept themselves alive in the hunt for a top 8 berth long enough, and they secured it a couple of weeks before finals kicked off, but they kept themselves alive and they gave themselves a chance, and they caught fire in that final round, man. And, if you keep yourself alive, then luck's a fortune, and you just got to be in it to win it. And they did carry on through that form. I will admit that I didn't think that Roosters contest was particularly high quality. If I'm remembering correctly, Dor, Roosters made a lot of errors in that second half. The Roosters shot themselves in the foot, but you can only beat who's in front of you, right?
Exactly.
And the Raiders were gassed, and the Sharkies took advantage, but the Sharkies were good, man. The Sharkies were very good on that night, man. So I don't mean to sound like I'm making excuses or taking anything away from Cronulla. I'm not. I'm just saying what I saw before me, and really they went as deep as they did because of that Bulldogs effort. And I would say that besides maybe a handful of other performances sprinkled throughout the year, they never really caught fire, and they just kept themselves above water long enough to make the top 8, give themselves a shot, and they gave themselves a really good crack, a good account of themselves. And they were in that game against Melbourne for a fair bit 100%. Too. It wasn't sealed until about the final 7 minutes of that game. So overall, it is a pass, Mike, but I still think that there's just a bit there left to be desired.
No, that's very fair. I think another thing that we should make mention of is there were, a few injuries suffered for the Sharks throughout the season, and none other than the ACL to Cameron McInnes, which was actually suffered in that massive win here in round 24, in that 54-22 win. Yeah, McInnes went down and featured. He was didn't feature again in the 2025 campaign, and he is a huge loss. Yes, he's getting on a bit in age, but he is their inspirational leader. He just goes out there and leads by what he does on the field. He tucks the ball under his wing, he tackles his heart out. That I'd happily and love to play for someone like Cameron McInnes. You look at his face after the game, it's absolutely battered and bruised and cut. And that's, they're the type of guys you want to go and play for. So I don't think it can be understated how big of a loss that was to lose Cameron McInnes in that game against the Titans, considering it was so close to finals football, to lose someone like that. I think we also saw Britton Nickera as well throughout that 25 campaign go down injured and miss a bit of time, or through suspension maybe. I'm trying to remember now exactly what happened to Nickera, but there are a few things that went there, but there was an emergence of a few players. I thought Jesse Conklin was absolutely outstanding. We will touch on that young man as well in his appearances. But yeah, I thought very commendable performance from the Sharks. But like you said, Sam, there wasn't really I don't know. I like they sort of got going, but didn't really, like it wasn't full, pedal to the metal, if that makes sense. There was, I just can't look past those 2 losses in the middle of the season. I'm sorry, Sharks fans. It just really wasn't a good back-to-back few weeks there. But let's continue moving on. This is probably the quickest gains and losses that we will ever see in these season reviews. Cronulla have gained no one. They have not gained anyone at this point for the 2026 season as it stands. So there are no new faces in regards of the top 30 squad. There could be obviously some new faces in development and whatnot that train and trial that Sam will touch on in a second. But in regards to, any new signings, no, Cronulla, they've only lost a few players and really only one that sort of saw 1 to 17 action throughout the season, because unfortunately Cade Dykes has had a horrid, wretched run with injuries. So yeah, he isn't really featured at all, unfortunately, for the Sharks at NRL level. Atkinson, while he was outstanding in 2024, didn't really get much of a real good fist of it in 2025, largely due to the form of Tricky Trindle. Braden Trindle was very good for the Sharks in season 2025, and unfortunately that led to Atkinson either playing from the bench or not playing at all. So it's a bit of a loss in regards to their depth department, Sam, but none of these, Max Bradbury's the last one. Sam touched on him in the Gold Coast Titans season preview as well. He's there on a train and trial deal, Sam, and he signed with Tweed Seagulls in the Q Cup. So Max Bradbury, Sam explained his whole story. I don't need to go through it again in that Gold Coast Titans podcast. So if you want to know a bit more about Max Bradbury, head to that podcast, Sam. But what are your thoughts? I guess I got a few questions for you, mate. I know it's not your team, but I think as a Sharks fan or a fan looking in at like the Sharks, what do you think of something like, is this a positive that Cronulla have not added anyone? Do you think that they're happy with the team that they've got? Or do you look at it and you look back at the season 2025 campaign and you look at it and you're like, well, what were we missing? Was there, could have we got a player in set position that could come and do the job what we missed in 2025? To me, I don't really know. I don't know if there's, I could say go and grab set player to replace set player. I thought, Ero missed a bit of the 2026 campaign as well. He was outstanding, KL Ero. For me, they've got like youngsters there in the back line. We saw Harodi, Stone Street, that were outstanding for the Sharks, Sam. So
Chris Vilea.
Yeah. Do you believe that this is a mistake from the Sharks, or what are your thoughts in regards to the no gains from the Sharkies this offseason?
I think it's all part of the design by Craig Fitzgibbon, because I think this is as good a time as any to talk to you about this list. And maybe this is something that a graphic that you might want to make up a little bit later. Dor, let me just take the reins for a bit and let me tell you how many people are off contract at the end of this year. Jaden Beryl, Billy Burns, Braden Hamlin-Uele, Howard Tapahu, Blake Hosking, Sione Katoa, that's 6 so far, William Kennedy, Cameron McInnes, Hohepapuru, Nuahi Puru, Jesse Ramian, Toby Rudolph, Sam Stone Street, and Talakai. That's about 14 names that I have just rounded off. This is a contract year just for the Cronulla Sharks club, full stop. This is by design by Craig Fitzgibbon for half of his roster to be off contract at the end of this year. You said the other day, I can't remember which podcast it was, but a player can go even harder in a contract year. You've got half the friggin' squad there, and the other half went so close to appearing in a grand final last year that they're going to be even hungrier. And look, I think it is a positive that they haven't gained anyone, because it shows, at least in my opinion anyway, that they've got confidence in what they got. So, and as far as the losses go, Atkinson is good. I said that before in the Dragons podcast, and we never saw enough of Kate Dykes, unfortunately, and Max Bradbury as well. We hadn't seen nothing of. So there's really not much to comment on the losses. But the main talking point about the squad in general is how many players are going to be off contract or are off contract by the end of 2026. We're going to get into the train and trial shortly, but you think about someone like a Michael Gabriel. I'm sure you've heard that name throughout the traps as well.
I was going to mention him. He's definitely someone.
Like, you have a lazy eye on Jesse Ramian, and Michael Gabriel is bashing down the door, waiting for the opportunity. So if I feel like I'm not just picking on Ramian. I'm just saying everybody in general. I feel like because it is an off-contract year, basically for the whole freaking Sharks outfit, that these youngsters that have gone really well in Jersey Flegg and New South Wales Cup for Sharks / Newtown Jets, I don't think Craig Fitzgibbon is going to muck around and pull the trigger on a youngster to come on in like a Michael Gabriel. Just say, for example, if Jesse Ramian has been out of form or might be out of form, let's say for the first 8 weeks of the competition, man, because it's Generation Next in 2027. And there's so many other players that are really under the microscope as well, but I'll just save that for a tick. But that's really the big thing here. The gains and losses are pretty much 0-0, really. It's just a 50-50 thing, and they just move on. They're confident in what they got. But the real talking point is how many players they've got off contract. And I wouldn't mind taking a couple for the Cowboys as well, just quietly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think another thing that you should also mention as well, Sam, is we try to, use our knowledge. Very knowledgeable people, you and I, and we know what's happening around the rugby league landscape. And we saw only just the other week, Chris Valia actually signed with the Perth Bears. We also saw Maween Hiroti sign with the Gold Coast Titans as well. So there's 2 outside back options gone. You've also seen Jesse Ramian shipped like no tomorrow to every team in the competition, basically. Definitely heavily mentioned. You said, I know you're not a massive Jesse Ramian fan, but he has been, he was heavily linked to the Cowboys there at one stage. And I think, I don't know if it's completely dead, like dead fish in the water, but I think that there was a disagreement to what Ramian was actually looking at in terms of money-wise to what actually the Cowboys were willing to pay Jesse Ramian to come up there. And, you and I touched on it in the last Cowboys podcast, you especially. There's no center that's really grabbed a stranglehold of a position up in North Queensland. And
if Purdue is shifting into the halves,
Yes, yeah. And that was what you were putting forward. So, I don't know, Sam. It is a huge year. Yeah, I really like to say it because I think it's a real big motivator for players. It's not just in the NRL. It's a lot of sports. We see some of the best years of their careers coming in contract years, Sam. So, look, to have it so many is pretty wild. Like we've got to touch on as well, Jesse Congoon extended with the Sharkies as well. That I think is a massive re-signing, as you can see there.
Honestly anticipating he'd be signing with Perth, so this is a really good get for the Sharkies.
I think this is pointing to one thing for me. I'm questioning whether this either is Cameron McInnes's last year in the NRL, full stop, and he's retiring, or it's his last year at the Sharks. I think with just the direction that the length of the contract to 2030, I don't think they're signing a player like Jesse Kongoon. Look, he's an absolutely phenomenal talent. He has also been riddled with injuries throughout his career. For him to, come in and get that contract after a really good, strong 2025 end of the season to the back end of the regular season into the finals when McInnes was out, Kongoon started in lock and he was outstanding. So I definitely think that's played a big part. But wow, oh wow, Sam, you nailed it, man. There is a lot to play for a lot of these players in season 2026 for the Cronulla Sharks.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay, mate. I'm going to just send it straight to you. You said about the train and trial. The floor is yours, my friend. Let's look at the train and trial and development list for the Cronulla Sharks in season 2026.
Alrighty. Well, let me just say that we sort of alluded to it just then as well, that the Sharkies team is settled. It's going to be kind of hard, touch wood, unless if injuries are awful for the Sharkies this year. It's going to be hard to break into this team. But there are a couple of names that you should look out for in the future, and one of them might be coming a little bit sooner, possibly than we think. So let's start off with Riley Pollard, who, from what I've read, from what I've seen so far, is actually the only player that is on a development contract. Now, Riley Pollard is has a pretty impressive resume, a very impressive young man, actually. I'm just going to bring up his stats now, but Riley Pollard has been about for a couple of years now, and he has pretty much seen nothing but success in his time at Cronulla. I'm just bringing up his stats now. Apologies for that, guys. So he is a former Panther junior. Well, if you don't mind, that's from about 2021, 2022. So he is a former Panther junior. He went to the Shire in 2024. In 2024, he plays at halfback, sorry. He guided that Jersey Flegg team to the grand final in 2024. Unfortunately, that was a loss. The year after, last year, he guided the team to a preliminary final, so deep into finals once more. But it was only a couple of weeks later that he played halfback for the New South Wales Cup Newtown Jets. So he was playing Jersey Flegg prelim footy. 2 weeks later, he's called back up into New South Wales Cup to play in a prelim final, and he did well, but unfortunately Newtown didn't get there in the end. So this young Riley Pollard is playing Jersey Flegg halfway through 2025. He's also mixing in New South Wales Cup. He is a halfback of the future. My question is that how the hell is he going to break in unless if Nico Hines, is earmarked for State of Origin again? That's a completely different conversation for another time. But some of his form at the back end of last year would maybe warrant a bit of a second look, just quietly. So Riley Pollard on a development contract, a very impressive halfback, and you would imagine that he's going to take probably not Jersey Flegg this coming year. He is the New South Wales Cup halfback, I would imagine, for the Newtown Jets. So he is going to have a very interesting year. So then the next man we've got Mr. Brad Fernley here. Mr. Brad Fernley, I'm just going to bring up. So he too is another former Panther junior. And then I want to go into Christian Dixon. Christian Dixon is a winger and has been part of the Sharks program since 2022, 2023. Now, the name here that I want to mention and make a big discussion point over is Taj Ford. Taj Ford is a name that I've heard for about 3 years now, and he seems like a real go-getter. And he has a very important 2026 campaign coming up, because with William Kennedy off contract at the end of this year, Taj Ford has the oyster in his hand, and he's just got to reach in to take that pearl from within inside that oyster. So if Taj Ford absolutely slays it, and there's no reason why he can't, he's been very impressive and has formed a very nice combination with Riley Pollard. Taj Ford could be the next fullback starting maybe at the end of this year if things go a little bit awry, get the youngster in. But Taj Ford, or maybe Liam Eisen as well, maybe. He's another one that's there, but Taj Ford's got a big year. and he could be the starting fullback potentially. Might still be a bit too young, but potentially just for his NRL career anyway. Then we got Jai Davies. He is a prop, and these are the names. There's not too much more information out there. They've all come through, except for one. They've all come through the system. Jai Davies is a prop. Lockie Araulo is a prop. Oliver Lester is a fullback who was playing SG ball last year, so he's years off, but there's some nice raps about him. Blake Watman is also in that same age bracket. He is a second rower. Now, I bring up Xavier Cacciotti. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Xavier Cacciotti, he's actually not on a train and trial, and he's not on a development contract. And Dor is saying, well, why the hell did you make me put him in here for? Well, the reason why I put him here for is because that he's actually got a really nice resume himself. So he is a former Australian, he is a former Australian school. No, Cacciotti was the 2025 Jersey Flag Player of the Year for the Canberra Raiders. He has come up from Canberra. He is an Australian schoolboy representative as well. So someone like a Blake Brayley has got it under lock and key, right? With his best year ever in 2025. But the Sharkies have picked up a really impressive sounding reading Xavier Cacciotti in at hooker. I'll just repeat again that he was the 2025 Jersey Flag Player of the Year for the Canberra Raiders team, and he is also an Australian schoolboy too. So if you're a Sharks fan, definitely keep a keen eye out for Mr. Cacciotti. But primarily, even though I don't really think any of these players will see first grade in 2026, especially if the Sharkies are healthy, I would say that Taj Ford and Riley Pollard are the two names from this list that you should be keeping an eye out on, at least in my opinion anyway, as a non-Sharky supporter.
You got to think of it as well, Sam. Ronaldo Mulatalo, that we'll touch on as well, is out for the basically majority of the 2026 season. You've also got to think that now, Daniel Atkinson's now moved on to the Red V. So there's a bit of opportunity there for players in that Sharks outfit. And yeah, like if they need a half, well, Riley Pollard could be the option there, Sam, considering with their squad that they've got, unless they go to like a Puru. It's, you know what I mean? Like there's not really that much depth in that regard in the halves, but Puru's a very quality player, but that could see, that could see Riley Pollard get an opportunity in season 2026. I do believe what you say. I think Liam Eason, I reckon, is slightly ahead of Taj Ford when it comes to it, but for both men, it is a huge opportunity because, yeah, I don't see William Kennedy being at the Sharks or even I think it's going to be rough to see him even in the NRL after this season. Like William Kennedy's a class operator, quality player, but I don't know if the Sharks have only extended him for one season. Like, come on, that's not really a show of confidence at all. That's that's what you've said. Okay, we've got a heap of players off contract in season 2026. Let's see what you can all go and do in the 2026 season, and we'll decide whether you get an extension or something in regards to that. There is big hype on Liam Eason as well, or Eisen, pardon me, as well. So look, and Cade Dykes as well. He's very talented, Cade Dykes, and has, when he's played in New South Wales Cup, been very, very exceptional, but his body's just failed him. So look, a solid list, Sam. Probably a bit of a weaker list compared to some of the other teams that we've gone through. Not the weakest, but definitely a weaker list. So anyway, let's move on from, gains, losses, train and trial developments and whatnot. Let's move into the draw, Sam, for the Cronulla Sharks in season 2026. And I alluded to it before, Sam, that they've had a bit of they had a shocking draw Let's just put it. It was not a good draw in season 2025. They were basically smashed with the Kentucky Tour levels of travel in season 2025. Sam, leading to their mid-season form slump that we alluded to just before in our season 2025 review. In 2026, the boys in the black, white, and blue are cheering. They're absolutely cheering. I can hear those Sharks fans singing up Cronulla, the boys in the black, white, and blue, after seeing the AI give them that cracking draw that includes playing premiership heavyweights, the Broncos, Storm, Panthers, and Bulldogs just once, ladies and gentlemen, that the Sharks will verse the Broncos, Storm, Panthers, and Bulldogs. Another win for the Sharks is that they don't travel to Amy Park in Melbourne at all, where their season ended in 2025. So there will be no hoodoo going back down to Melbourne and getting those horrible nightmares of what happened at the back end of the 2025 campaign. So before, I'll go through the teams they played twice and once in the bye, Sam, and then you can go through what you always do in the round 20 to the home stretch, basically. So look, the teams they play twice: the Dolphins, the Dragons, the Rabbitohs, the Raiders, the Roosters, the Seagulls, the Titans, the Warriors. Oh, mamma mia, that is up there with one of the best that we've seen. I don't know why I've made my prediction to where the Sharks are, but we'll get to that later. I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, the Dolphins, the teams that they only play once. So if you look at it just quickly before we move the teams they play once, the teams they played twice, look, they've got the Dolphins, who were very competitive in season 2025. The Warriors, that obviously they were great, the Warriors, and then they had that late season slump. The Roosters and the Raiders. So basically the Roosters, Raiders, Warriors, and Dolphins on 2025 form are the ones to look at. Yes, the Dolphins missed out on the 8. So if you're looking at just top 8 opposition, it's the Roosters and the Raiders and the Warriors that they actually played twice. But to get 2 games against the Seagulls, 2 games against the Titans, 2 games against the Dragons, I think the Bunnies will be much better in season 2025, but 2 games against South Sydney as well. Very good draw in that aspect for the teams that they played twice. The teams that they play once, I touched on a few of them before: the Broncos, the Storm, the Panthers, the Bulldogs. That's all top 4 and 8 teams from season 2025. The Eels, the Tigers, the Cowboys, and the Newcastle Knights round out the teams that they play once. The teams, or the Sharks bye rounds for round or for season 2026 are in round 7, round 12, and in round 17. So it's a bit different to like the Cowboys, for example, Sam, that we touched on in our last podcast, where they have to play like 15 straight weeks before they actually get their first bye. Cronulla actually get one. I think it's actually a pretty good time to get a bye. I actually think like round 7, that's a pretty good bye. You've gone through like a month and a half of the season. I think it's a good time to have a rest after the first month and a half. And I don't mind, actually. I think maybe if I'm being really critical of their bye schedule, the round 17 bye, like you'd maybe want that like round 23 or something like that. But the positive of having it in that round 17 is that it looks like that the Sharks have 2 byes in and around that origin period, which can be very helpful in that regard, as Sam is flickering off and on in the background, as I will continue anyway, and then Sam can go to it when he's ready. But yeah, I think it's not the worst bye round schedule. Sam is back. Look, Sam, take it away before I give the final verdict, my friend. Talk about that run home for the Cronulla Sharks for the 2026 campaign.
Yes, mate. Well, also, that game against the Brisbane Broncos, the one and only time that they got to do it, is a couple of days before State of Origin. So that's going to be an Origin-affected game. So the likes of a Reece Walsh, potentially, Katoni Staggs, Ezra Mam, a couple of others, Payne Haas. That's an Origin-affected game, and the Sharkies had, 0 in 2025 5 as far as Origin representatives, unless if Nico Hines can find his way back. So that's an extra little bonus there for the Sharkies. They might go up completely full strength to take on, for all intents and purposes, a second string Brisbane Broncos outfit. So that's a bit of a get there. So let's go into the run to the finals. It starts in round number 20 for everybody. And the Sharkies here, they have 4 home games. So it's an even split from round 20 onwards. They take on the Newcastle Knights. They are then away to Manly. They host the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They have the local derby against the Dragons away. They then host the Canberra Raiders, away to the Gold Coast, away to the Parramatta Eagles, and then the final game of the regular season for them is a home game at newly named Ocean Protect Stadium. They are taking on the Melbourne Storm. So, Dor, besides the Melbourne Storm and the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and the Raiders are always an enigma, so I can't really tell, that is a dream run to the finals, in my opinion, man. Manly, Newcastle,
really tough ones.
Manly, Newcastle, Dragons, Gold Coast, and Parramatta. For a team that finished 5th and went to a prelim in 2025, that's maybe the best run to the finals that I've seen so far, despite Melbourne Storm lurking in round number 27. But that could be an origin. That could be a rest game. Exactly. Both teams could already be locked up and might choose to rest. But that's a great end to the season for them. But just I want to avert your attention to the middle portion of their year. So from round number 15 through to round 19, they are on the road the entire 5-week stretch. Round 15 away to the Warriors, 16 away to the Roosters, a bye, away to the Broncos, and away to the Dolphins for a Queensland double. That is a really big prick of a 5-week stretch there for the Cronulla Sharks, man. That is the nastiest part of their draw, in my opinion, mate.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough stretch for the Sharkies, especially, yeah, in that middle part of the season, Sam. But that dream run home is something to really that the Sharks will look to, and their fans will be like, yeah, that's where we wet the sails and we come home very, very hard with a very strong finish to the season. So look, let's give the final verdict. So the Sharks' disappointment in that 2025 draw has been reversed in 2026. Their first 6 rounds are a real serious launch pad for their final aspirations, with 3 of their first 6 games at home. Granted, there is a decent travel also sandwiched into their start to Bathurst, Canberra, and Perth included. So I guess that's a slight negative. But look, it's a great draw overall. The games that they play against the 2025 top 8 and bottom 9 teams, they verse the top 8 10 times from season 2025. They verse the top 4 from season 2025 5 times. The bottom 9 14 times. The bottom 4 7 times. They have 0 5-day turnarounds. 0. They have 7 6-day turnarounds and 16 7+ day turnarounds, Sam. This is up there with one of the best draws. I have this at an A. It could nearly be an A+. It is very good. This is... Yep. It's definitely a top 3 draw. This is pushing very close to being better than the Dolphins' schedule. This could be the leader for the best draw in season 2026. And I don't know what I'm doing with my prediction, but it would be nothing short of a failure if they don't make the 8. I don't think the Cronulla Sharks with this draw. So you can't ask, as a Sharks fan, Sam, you can't ask for a better draw than what they've been given here.
I agree, man. I don't do ratings or whatnot, but yeah, that's I was thinking, oh gee whiz, a B+, but Yeah, no, I'd probably actually say that maybe an A minus, maybe for me, mate, if I had to take a leaf out of your book, mate, or a page out of your book. So it is a good draw. It is definitely a top three, maybe top five best draws that we've seen, man, for sure. It just, I feel like it's not the best just because I think that there's that 5 week stretch, and I think there's a little bit more travel involved for the Sharkies than what there is for, let's say, a Manly or a Dolphins.
All right, Sam, let's cut to the chase. It's time for the injury ward. An unfortunate, or not a template or a thing that we really like talking about. We hope that obviously every team's fully healthy and there's no issues, but the Sharks have two players returning from ACL injuries. So I alluded to the Cameron McInnes ACL, which happened in this round 24 clash back on the 16th of August. He is pushing. It could be round one, but I think I want to be safe. And I've heard it's like a round 1 to 6 thing. I basically went 3 to 6 because I reckon it would be a big risk. I think NRL Physio posted like an ACL recovery timeline post the other day, and McInnes, if he does play in round 1, he's looking at like a 7-month turnaround, which would be by far out of all the ACL injuries that were suffered in season 2025, the shortest recovery. And are you surprised by that? Me
Yeah,
personally,
it
no,
would
I'm
be
not.
remarkable. No, it would be
I'm not
remarkable if he
surprised.
came back
He's
that
just a
quickly, man.
workhorse. He is a
Oh,
workhorse.
sure, but at his age, with all due respect, man, when we're so used to seeing the 9 month number come up, bro, that would be remarkable for me. I would be surprised how quickly that would, if that were to happen.
Yeah. So Mulatalo, unfortunately, he suffered his in the Pac Champs at the end of the season for the New Zealand. So he is not going to be back. There is no real set date at this point in time. There's no real info out there. There's some people are saying he won't feature at all in season 2026, but
Oh
some are
man,
also saying he'll feature at the back end of the 2026 campaign. So that's why I want to be optimistic. I think that Ronnie will work his backside off, that hunger to get back, and I think he's going to be looking at somewhere in the regards of around 20 to 27
late July.
return. Yeah, late July, early August. Sort of return. But he could wait till maybe the last couple of weeks of the like they could wait till around 25, 26, 27 sort of thing to give him a couple of games under his belt before the finals if they're doing as we probably as you expect them to do in season 2026. So look, wish them both all the best. Look, Ronnie's still got a bit of a road ahead of him to get back to playing, but McInnes is looking great. That photo actually is from this week's training, so there is probably a high chance that McInnes could actually play for the Sharks in round 1, which would just be, as Sam said, a miracle. Anyway, let's move to our team list, Sam. This is pretty self-explanatory, probably one of the easiest 1 to
Yeah,
17s or 1 to 20s that we've done. There's not real much movement, very similar due to the fact that there's no gains for the Sharks. So for me, I've got Kennedy at the back. I've got Katoa and Stone Street. Stone Street is the man to come in to replace Ronaldo Mulatalo. Look, Hiroti was outstanding, and so was Stone Street. Both of those men did get injured. Stone Street did suffer a bit more of a worse injury than Hiroti did, but regardless, both men missed time, and I thought Stone Street was very, very good in season 2025. I've got Ramian and Iro in the centers, but look, you could either, if Ramian's not performing like you sort of alluded to before, Sam, you've got Gabriel, you've got Hiroti, you've got Valia as well, or Valea as well there, Chris Valea. So there's plenty of options there for the Sharks in regards to center depth. You've got Braden Trindle and Nico Hines, very self-explanatory there in the halves. Fanua Blake, and I've got Toby Rudolph starting in at prop. I've got Blake Brayley look, just quickly, he was absolutely outstanding in season 2025. Probably, oh, well, he was in regards to the whole season as a whole. He was the best hooker in the competition for season 2025, Blake Brayley. He was exceptional. That saw him get Kangaroos honours. Yes, he didn't actually play, but he was in the squad and made the trip over to England. So Blake Brayley, absolutely outstanding. And look, if he can play like he did at the back end of 2000 for 2025 in 2026, the Sharks are certainly going to do very well. Look, Billy Burns filled in when Nickera was either suspended or injured. I can't really remember, but he was really good. But Nickera, for me, he's outstanding for the Sharkies. So Nickora and Wilton. Wilton also missed some time in season 2025. So yeah, Nakora and Wilton my second row. Kongloon is my lock. I don't have McGuinness there just because I just don't think he'll be there for round one. But look, if he's in there, then my team list will change a little bit. Probably, I think coming back from an ACL, you probably either start McGuinness and then bring Kongloon off the bench. Yeah, we'll wait and see. But look, I just got to go with what I'm backing. I don't think McInnes will be right for round one. The Sharks should take a pretty cautious look with Cameron McInnes, especially considering the length of the season and their draw being a great draw. So they can probably ease him back into it. I've got Billy Burns. He was outstanding for Cronulla in season 2025. He was outstanding in New South Wales Cup. And then when given the opportunity in NRL level, he was outstanding there as well. Talakai, got to have big CSC for Talakai on the bench there. Very versatile. Can play in the centers, in the back row. Could even play in the middle. He's just a big body who just loves just absolutely trucking the ball up. So real damaging force CSC for Talakai. Tom Hazelton and Oregon Kafusi. A bit of impact off the bench with Hazelton and Kafusi. I liked how both of these guys went about their work in season 2025. Look, if you really wanted to, you could bring Rudolph off the bench and start Kafusi, but that's how I'm going about my team list. I've got Niwa Puru as my 18th man, just a bit of versatility there. We've discussed in the development and training trials, the with the absence of Atkinson, the lack of half or sort of playmaking. I could have gone a Jaden Beryl if I wanted a hooker, but I've gone with Niwa Puru. I've got Hamlin Uele there, and look, if there's an injury to the Sharks forward pack, he will be straight in there. Look, didn't have his best campaign in season 2025, but Hamlin Uele can be a very damaging player on his day. Then the last man for me I've got is Marwin Hiroti. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was a bit better than Chris Valea, and I think Gabriel's going to be a bit of a long-term project. I think he's probably going to come in season 2027. And that might see Ramian moving on, which is most likely what's going to happen due to this Michael Gabriel just absolutely a real threat. So that is my 1 to 20 for the Cronulla Sharks for round one. Sam, you can go through your team for round one, my friend, for your Sharkies.
Yes, man. Yeah, there's really not too much difference between you and I. The 1 through to 7 is exactly the same. Our difference comes, I think Oregon Kaufusi starts. I think Toby Rudolph has a bigger motor than Kaufusi, but I think Kaufusi is a bit of a better defender than Toby Rudolph as well. I thought he did some really good things. And I thought he actually had his best year in first grade since his days at Parramatta. Actually, he was impressive at Parramatta, and I thought he did really well last year. The back row is exactly the same, and our bench is exactly the same, maybe just a swapping of the numbers as well. And then I've got Hepapuru in jersey 20, Hamlin Uele as well. But I've also got Big Tuku Ha'u Tapua. He is a colossus, man. So there's no doubt that their strength, and it has been for the past few years, is their forward pack. Their depth and the talent that they got in that pack is monstrous and very, very impressive. So no, we're very much the same, mate. Very much the same.
All right. Very self-explanatory, the team list for the Cronulla Sharks. Look, if McInnes comes in, you're probably either bringing him on the bench for, I'd say you're probably either replacing either Billy Burns or Talakai, I think, with McInnes. And either he starts and Colgoon goes to the bench, or McInnes goes to the bench and replaces one of those gentlemen there. Because look, Nikora and Wilton are 80-minute second rowers, so you could argue that there's not really a need for a Billy Burns in the lineup. But let's continue on. All right. When my mouse wants to work, there we go. Our breakout player, Sam, for season 2026 for the Cronulla Sharks, we have come into a unity decision. And we have both agreed that Mr. Jesse Colgoon will be the man to break out in season 2026. Look, as I alluded to before, you can see here his horrid, wretched run of injuries through the 2022 to 2024. But he actually had a pretty good bit of health in season 2025, played 18 games for the Sharks, was able to get off the nudie run with a try, Sam. 7 tackle breaks. Look at that tackle efficiency there, Sam, 95.72. And if you look at it through the whole his whole career, it's 90 plus, which is absolutely outstanding for the amount of work and the work that he's actually getting through in the middle of the field. So you could argue he sort of broke out, but look, this stat here for me is the difference. And the reason why I think he's going to break out as well in season 2026 is one, well, look, to be honest, let's be fair, there's not really many players that Sam and I could actually choose from to actually break out from this Cronulla Sharks list. Colgoon is sort of slightly already broken out, but I think this is where he goes large. He's going to reward the club for that strong extension. I think he'll be pushing up to around 80, 90 meters per game. I think he'll get a few more minutes. I think McInnes, yes, coming back from that ACL will be eased into action. I think Colgoon is going to be playing a real fist of most of those minutes. Sam, come the early parts of the season. And look, McInnes is getting on in age. Look, he's still a quality player, but Colgoon's the future here for the Sharks. And I know a lot of people at Cronulla are very, 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 very excited to have extended Colgoon till 2030, but also just to have such an engine in the middle of the field. And his tackle efficiency, he doesn't need to do any work with that. If he can just boost the run meters up, work on his ball playing through the middle of the field, look, he could be a real flyer in season 2026, where, you go at the end of season 2026, wow, that Jesse Colgoon kid, he absolutely killed it in season 2026 and established himself as a real, deserving lock forward in this NRL premiership, and a deserving man to be playing in the 1-13 jersey every week in the NRL competition. And to say something like that for someone that's played 30 first grade games is going to be, a real big move. This is where Colgoon sends his career trajectory in the upwards direction and rewards the Sharks for showing so much faith in him, looking after him through the struggles, but then rewarding him due to his efforts on the field, Sam. So what are your thoughts if you want to add anything to Jesse Colgoon, and why he's your breakout player for season 2026?
Mate, you've taken the words pretty much all out of my mouth. I've got really nothing else to add on to it. He has a sniff about him that I think he could be a representative player in the next couple of years. Man. Yeah, I think he's definitely thereabouts. So the only thing that he's got to do is just bump up those running meters by about 20 meters on average. So get around to that 100-meter running mark every game. So no, it's hard to break in, but if there's one player that can break out this year, it's going to be Jesse.
All right, the new jersey. For the Sharks, Sam, look, there's a bit of a trend going around, and maybe you could argue that the Sharks started this whole throwing back to 2016 because they have thrown it back to 2016, a very special year for the people in the Shire, back to their premiership glory. As you can see, Chad Townsend there, a part of that premiership winning side in that jersey. And then you can see Nico Hines in the new inspired home kit, which is basically, a throwback to the 2016 jersey. Sam, look, if I have to be very critical, I would love that Aramax or Aramex sponsorship, the color of the lettering to be light blue. If that was the case, I think it's a great jersey. Like, it's just simple, it's clean, it's nice. Nice color scheme, the light blue, bit of white and some black. You can't really hate on it. If I'm being really picky, it's just maybe the sponsor integration there on the sleeve, as well as the as well as on the running through the chest period or part of the jersey there with that RMX logo. If that was light blue, that would be outstanding. The Sharks away jersey is the same as what it was in season 2025, majority black with a bit of blue and white. So, Sam, what are your thoughts on the throwback jersey for the Cronulla Sharks inspired by 2016, wearing it in 2026, my friend?
I don't really see a difference, and I'm so sorry to Sharks fans, but I don't see a difference. Apparently there is. I think it's something to do with the shoulders, but legitimately, the Sharks jersey is the Sharks jersey, mate, and it's good. Like it's great. Like, it's like a red V South Sydney sort of Roosters classic jersey. Like, there's no need to muck around with it in any way, shape, or form. It's a classic. It will only ever be tinkered with insofar as like the sponsorships and all that.
To have tinkered it a bit more, like, gone a bit more out of the field, or it's just because of that?
No, it's the 10-year anniversary, man. No. It's good. It's good.
Do you agree with the light blue text though for the Aramex?
Maybe just black instead of that's green, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe red. Black to people. Oh, it's red, is it? Oh, okay, well there you go. But red, maybe black just to fit in with the black, white, and blue. But I get you. Yeah, but it's fine. It's good. Blue.
Yeah. Quality jersey. Not something that we're gonna rave about like we have on some jerseys on these 2026 jersey reviews or previews. But yeah, look, it's a quality jersey and a really good meaning, considering it's, a 10-year anniversary of a very special time in the Shire. So let's hope for the people in the Shire that they go as well as they did in 2016. Now,
speaking of running it back, Dor.
Yes. Our Sharks ladder predictions for season 2026. I'm going to go first. I'm just going to keep it plain and simple. I am struggling to fit 8 teams into the top 8. One team has to miss out for me for the Dolphins to come in. Unfortunately for me, I think it's the Sharks. Look, considering the draw and everything and the cursing that I said throughout this podcast would allude to potentially different. But look, one team for me has to miss it. And the rest of these teams that we're covering in the podcast, I just couldn't go past with making the top 8. Again, don't hate me, Sharks fans. Look, it's with that draw and whatnot. As I said, if they do finish in this 9-13, it's definitely a disaster. With the list that they've got, the depth that they've got in quality positions outside of maybe half and hooker, the depth that this Sharks team has, and it speaks volumes of why they haven't recruited anyone for season 2026. Just for me, I've got to sort of come up with an excuse as to why I put them in the 9-13. Maybe I'm thinking the travel gets a bit to them. Yes, that the opposition that they verse isn't as tough as what they faced last year. But thinking of, that they've got to get off to, yes, they versed, easy opposition, but, they've got to go to Bathurst, they've got to go to Canberra, they've got to go to Perth inside that first start of the season. Then they've got that string of away games together. Yes, they've got a glorious run home. But for me, I think it might be where throughout the middle of this season where they go off a bit off the eight ball. I'm just trying to think as where I could really, pinpoint and sort of say that why I've got them more to 9 to 13. I think if I've got to be very critical, I thought, yeah, I'll be critical. The If I'm looking at Cronulla's spine, it's a quality spine, but I look at the fullback and I look at the 6-7. Oh, I've done it again. Combination. As look for me, Nico Hines and Braden Trindle, with the utmost respect to both players. I love Nico Hines. So I don't think they work very well together. I think that they are very similar players. They both like, both like to, control the team. And I feel like when Trindle is outstanding, Hines takes too much of a back seat to where that it's, he's basically like gone missing. You wouldn't know that Nico Hines is on the field. It's more that way than it is the other way of recent times, where Trindle has more dominated Nico Hines in regards to, being the star of the show. We have seen some good Nico Hines performances, but I just don't think they really combine well as a halves partnership. And it might have been the reason why they didn't get over the line in season 2025. Look, William Kennedy, he's a great player, great fullback, great speed. But his playmaking, I think, is an area that is very weak compared to the rest of the competition, especially through the season. Look, Sharks had a couple of really big wins in season 2025, but they also had some harrowing losses where they scored about 4 and 6 points. And for a team that did so well last season, those type of games where they struggled to score points, I think is a multitude of those two things that I've just touched on with the halves partnership as well as the fullback. There's nothing more I need to say in regards to Blake Brayley. Blake Brayley is not the problem. He is absolutely outstanding. He is a real gem. He's up there with like a top 3 hooker in the game. He was outstanding in season 2025, but it's just the combination. I thought that Hines and Atkinson worked better than Trindle and Hines. Look, yeah, I'm just speaking my own point, what I think. I've just got to come up with something to give you guys to say why they won't be in the top 8. But yeah, if I'm being critical and what I'm seeing, I watch every single game of football. If there's something that I need to, be critical of the Sharks, is the combination of the halves and the play of the fullback. Like Kennedy, yeah, he's outstanding, but he's not, he's sort of like, he doesn't like, he has the run, like doesn't have the same like run meters as say some other, like the James Tedesco's or, those types of players, those fullbacks that just run for days and days. He sort of comes into, the other category of the fullback where it's like, your Drinkwaters, your Walsh, or those type of players, Latrell Mitchell, or of like where they're not getting really big run meters, but they're ball playing. Like all those 3 players I've mentioned are daylights ahead of William Kennedy when it comes to playmaking. So for me, that is, I think that will be the reason. I think some struggles in the halves, in the fullback. And maybe a last thing before I hand it to you, Sam, is potentially just with so many players on a contract year, can all of them play so well? Like, there's so much uncertainty. Will some of them start to stress out a bit and be like, oh, crap, like I'm not getting, the time or the opportunity that I deserve, or I'm not going too well. And then, the mental starts to take over and their performances start to drop because they're worrying about, their future and if they're going to be still to be able to play and in this NRL competition. So there are a couple of reasons why I think that they get there. But look, final thing is, if the Sharks make the 8, I'm not surprised at all. I just unfortunately had to leave a team out, and the Sharks are the team. So over to you, Sam.
I have Cronulla finishing inside the top 8 in the lower half of that top 8. I think Nico Hines and Trindle worked pretty well last year. I slightly disagree. They're still working it out, but I thought it was their best year together last year, and you would hope that is only going to improve. William Kennedy was the Dally M leader after the first 8 weeks of the competition last year. He was absolutely on fire, and unfortunately, he hit a brick wall. So, William Kennedy, if he can find that form again and sustain it, watch out. But I agree with you though that his playmaking skills as a fullback isn't where it needs to be, where it should be in comparison to the other teams. KL Iro though, bro, he ruptured his bicep very early on in the 2025 season. And what game did he return in? I'm 99% sure that maybe it was Keanu Kinney I'm thinking about, but KL Iro returned late into the season. I want to say he returned against the Gold Coast Titans. And when Iro returned, the Sharks' form went up a couple of cogs, at least in my opinion anyway. If KL Iro can remain largely injury-free throughout 2026, that is going to give them another 2 more victories in the competition, in my opinion. KL Iro is that good. He is that important to the Cronulla Sharks. Jesse Ramian, I think he had not an off year, but just a little bit above average year. I think he needs to go a little bit better in 2026. Aiden Fanua-Blake, I thought he had a very, very strong year in 2025. And Blake Brayley, you keep on doing what you're doing. Britton Nikora, I think he's had better years, Britton Nikora.
Yeah.
I do. I think he's had better years. And he was suspended over those last couple of weeks leading into the finals or during the finals, what have you. I do think that some of these players are going to arc up because it is an off-contract year for most. If the Sharkies do make the top 8 again and get bundled out after week 2, I think the Sharkies have done a little bit now over the past couple of years to not say that the Sharkies they're allergic to finals footy. I think they've shaken that monkey off though. But in saying that, if they do only make it to week 2 of the finals, I think Craig Fitzgibbon is just going to have just some sly looks in the office, in my opinion. I think people will start looking his way just a fraction in season 2027 if that's the way that things go. So it's all there for them to be a dark horse once again of this competition, but they've got to get out of their own heads. They've got to get out of their own way and actually do it, man. They've really got to do it this year because things are changing in 2027. And of course, and it can't be understated enough, the loss of Ronaldo Mulatalo is going to be massive.
Yeah, I was about to say.
One could say that Sam Stonestreet has already broken out. Well, he's got a hell of a freaking platform now, doesn't he, to go to a completely different level in the way that people view him or how many people rate him. Sam Stonestreet's got a massive year ahead of him, and the boys at the Rugby League Outlaws are all over him. They're really, really excited for him. So, no, he is quality for sure. I do think that they're too finals experienced now to not miss out. I think what they did against the Bulldogs sticks out so heavily in my mind. It was incredibly, incredibly impressive performance by the Sharkies, but gee whiz, they've got to do it for the whole season, man. They can't afford to have, those performances like they did, where they got trounced by 40 points by the Warriors and the Roosters. So I do have them in my top 8. I do think that on their day that they're going to give maybe, I think that they can give the Melbourne Storm some trouble. I do think that they can give maybe Penrith some trouble. I don't, unless if they really catch fire. And I mean, we don't know what the season is going to hold for us, right? But if the Sharkies can catch fire, I think that they could make it to a prelim again and see what happens on prelim day. I don't think they can win the comp just because there's a couple of teams ahead of them, but I think they can make some teams nervous if they can find the consistency.
I was going to say, Sam, why did you not have them in the 4, in your top 4 with like the good draw? Hold on, just let me say a few things. Look, on years gone by, there's been heavy scrutiny on the Cronulla Sharks when it comes to being bottom bashers. They beat the teams that they need to, but then when it comes up against the big guns, they falter. I thought in season 2025 last year, they didn't nail it in the coffin, but they definitely were much better against the big teams in season 2025. Is that a reason potentially why you haven't got them in the top 4, or is it like you just alluded to before, where that you've just got some teams that have just got either a better roster or you're just a bit more higher on them over the Cronulla Sharks?
It's a mixture of everything, but I agree with you on that point, though. They did perform better against the sides that were above them or equal to them, but they were still losing those games where they should have put those teams away, like the loss to the West Tigers and the other two that I mentioned just before as well. But that's a great point. They did play better against the top 4, top 6 teams, 100%. Yep. But yes, I do think there are a few more teams that have better rosters than them, and yeah, I just don't think the Sharkies have got that. I don't think they'll be hanging around the top 6 all year. They're a top 6 team.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much, Sam. I hope I'm terribly wrong for you, Cronulla Sharks fans. I hope you guys have a good season. But yeah, just got to be honest. And unfortunately for me, one team had to miss the top 8. And unfortunately, that was the Sharkies. But thank you so much, Sharks fans and everyone, for watching this and the support throughout these 12 episodes that we've had thus far. They've been absolutely outstanding. Remember to keep your comments coming through. Sam and I will do our best to get back to you. Remember to like and subscribe on our YouTube. Subscribe to Wobble and Jaw Sports. Subscribe to All Out Club as well. And then follow us all on social media and whatnot. All Out NRL Fantasy on social media, and Wobble and Jaw Sports on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, or for Instagram, should I say, for Sam. Otherwise, we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Sam. And remember, your team could be next. So we'll see you in the next one in episode 13. We will see you then. Thanks so much, Sam. Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye.